Let's talk about financial milestones to achieve before you turn 30. Whether you're in your early 20s or your late 20s like me, these steps will help you get set up for long-term financial success. You might be surprised to learn that a lot of people think that credit cards are for emergencies, or maybe you yourself think that credit cards are for emergencies because this is what you were taught growing up, or maybe this is what you've heard from family members or friends. But that's actually a really risky way of thinking because it can end up causing you so much more money. If something happens and you're not prepared because you don't have an emergency fund and you have to use your credit card or take out some kind of loan, or even worse, maybe you have to take out like a payday loan, which are literally the worst loans you can take out, you're basically going to end up paying so much more for whatever it is because of how high the interest is. And this is why it's so concerning that so many people think that credit cards are for emergencies. But actually, what you should do instead is create an emergency fund. What you want to do is sit down, figure out how much money you need to live each month. And this is really just for the necessities, things that you need to live, like rent, food, bills. You don't need to add like frivolous spending into this amount. Figure out what your monthly amount is, and then you basically want to set aside 3 to 6 months living expenses and put that in a savings account. You can also do a high interest savings account, which basically just gives you higher interest on your savings than a traditional account. But you don't have to either. You can also just keep it in the savings account in your bank if that's more simple for you. If you feel like the interest is like really not worth it, the 3-4% that you can get with the high yield interest savings account. But the key is to make sure you have this emergency fund. This is going to save you in so many situations, things like car repairs, or if you get fired from your job, or maybe you have a medical expense, or your pet has one. These kinds of things do feel like emergencies, but if you think about it, you can kind of predict that they will happen. You just can't really predict when. So it's really important to have an emergency fund, and not having one just leaves you vulnerable. So you want to make sure that you protect yourself by setting up an emergency fund. The second one is pay off high interest debt. Again, if you have credit card debts, if you have things like payday loans, the interests are insane, and it can actually make you feel like you're drowning in debt. Even people who have debt with lower interest rates, like student loans, can sometimes feel like they're drowning in debt. So it's really important that while you're young, you kind of take care of this and work to pay off these debts as fast as you can, because the sooner you can get it paid off, the sooner you can kind of start using that money to invest in your future and to actually start growing your wealth and start building your wealth. So don't let high interest rates hold you back or hold you down. Take care of them, and take care of them as early as you possibly can. The next one is to work on your credit score. In your 20s, there are a lot of exciting things that could be happening. Maybe you are moving out on your own for the first time. Maybe you're getting your own apartment for the first time. Maybe you're buying a car for the first time. But these things all require a credit score. Or maybe for some of you, you're even going to buy a house in your 20s. These are all very exciting sort of milestones, but they all require a good credit score. So make sure that you are taking care of your credit score. A few really easy and simple things that you can do in order to improve your credit score is, of course, always pay off the entire balance. And another one that you might not know about is your credit utilization rate, basically how much you're spending versus what your credit limit is. And a good rule of thumb is to not spend more than 30% of your credit limit. However, if you are lucky and you happen to have a really high credit limit, or if you kind of call your bank every time you get a raise or something like that and say, hey, I got a raise, I kind of want to increase my credit limit, like what can you do for me? Do be careful with this, because my friend had Wells Fargo, and she said when she asked if she could increase her credit limit, they actually ran a hard credit check on her that decreased her credit limit. I personally have not experienced this, but apparently it can happen. But if you can basically increase your credit limit to a higher point and use a really low percentage of it. So for example, if you can use maybe 10% or less of your credit limit, that is actually also going to help your credit score. But of course, not missing payments and paying off the full balance is what's going to be the most important. So I would recommend putting your credit card on auto pay. You might think that you are super responsible and you've never missed a payment before, and I believe that. But one time I was watching a video and this lady was saying when she was going through her divorce, things were just really rough, and that's the only time she ever missed a payment. But because of that, she just puts everything on auto pay. So kind of learn from that. Even though you might be really responsible, maybe you're super on top of things happen, life happens. So put it on auto pay so that you never have to worry about it, and you never have to worry about missing a payment. And then if you are a credit card person, if you're good with credit cards, if you are financially responsible, I would recommend looking into travel credit cards and looking into all of the perks of credit cards. I recently started using a travel credit card, and I have to say I am quite enjoying the little perks that it gives, and it makes me feel like financial literacy is so important, and this is why it's so important for you to learn about what is available to you and what you can do, because if not, you're really just missing out. And that's how I feel. I feel like because I didn't know about any of these things, and because I didn't take advantage of any of these things, I was just missing out on free perks that I could have been using this whole time. Things like lounge access at the airport and rewards that you can basically use to travel for free. The next one is build multiple streams of income. It can be really scary to only have one source of income and to have to like rely on it, especially if you hate your boss or if you maybe don't like your job. And I do think that no matter how secure you might feel in your current position in your career, you just never know what can happen. Companies can downsize. Companies sometimes will merge, or they'll get acquired by another company, and things just happen. Life is unpredictable. So it is a little bit scary to just rely on one single source of income, and it can cause a lot of stress and anxiety if you feel like you hate your job, if you feel like you hate your boss. So work on building multiple streams of income. You can do this in a few different ways. You can kind of work on building the actual income streams, or you can work on investing in yourself and expanding your knowledge and kind of expanding what is profitable about you, what skills you have that is actually profitable, that you can actually use to maybe get a better job. It doesn't always have to be like the side hustles that you hear about all the time. I actually think that when it comes to side hustles, unless there's a specific reason, I think you should be very intentional with it, because it is going to take a lot of time and energy. And when you're young, it might not seem like your time and energy is super valuable, but it actually is the most valuable resources that you have, because you're never going to be able to get the time back. You're never going to be able to go back in time and buy more of it. It just doesn't work that way. So I would be super intentional. Think about side hustles that is actually buildable and scalable versus just trading time for money, because then that's kind of more of the same. It's basically just like what you're doing at your regular job already. So be intentional so that you can actually maximize the value that you get back in return for the efforts that you're kind of investing into this. The next one is set financial goals. This is the perfect time to really sit down and ask yourself, what do you want? What do you want for your future self, and what do you want for your current self? I never want you to feel like you're only saving for the future and not living in the moment, but I also don't want you to end up in a bunch of credit card debts because you just said YOLO and you didn't want to miss out on life, and then you ended up in a really bad financial position. So really sit down and be super intentional with what you want to do. You work hard for your money, so you should make sure that your money is working hard for you and that you're using it to actually live your best life. Of course, make sure that you are set up for the future and do invest in retirement, but don't wait until you're retired to live your life. If you enjoy things like traveling or a nice latte, allow yourself to have these things for today as well. Kind of divide up your money in terms of future self versus current self, and be intentional with it. Be aware of what you're doing exactly and make sure that it aligns with your goals. The next one is start saving for retirement. When you're young, retirement feels like it's so far away. The reason you want to start now is because the most powerful tool you have at your disposal is time. When you invest for 20 years versus say 25 years, the difference is huge because of compound interest. And I'll put my favorite little chart on the screen about savings rate and how many years it's going to take for you to get to financial freedom or early retirement basically. And you can see that the higher your savings rate, the less time you're going to have to work and wait before you're basically financially free, before you don't have to go to a job that you hate or don't have to deal with a manager that you hate, because you have that freedom and that security to do what you actually want. So take full advantage of being young and invest for retirement. And there are different tax managed accounts. So if your employer offers a match for your 401k, make sure that you set that up. There are some people out there who will not take advantage of this, and it's basically free money. And you can also invest in a Roth IRA, and that money will grow tax-free, and you'll be able to start withdrawing when you turn 59 and a half. The other fun advantage of contributing to your 401k is the savings on your tax bill. Basically, if you make, say, 50k and you contribute, say, 5k to your 401k, instead of getting taxed like you make 50k, you're gonna get taxed as if you make 45k, if that makes sense. So basically, you're saving money for retirement and you're saving money on your tax bill. So there's like really no reason to not do it. And then of course, the best part about it is the employer match if your employer does offer one, because it is essentially free money. The next one is to work on financial literacy. Just a few things that I've mentioned in this video, most of you probably already know, but imagine if you didn't know it, how much you would be missing out on. When you don't understand all of the tools that's available to you and everyone else does, then really it's like you're playing a different game. It's like you're playing a game but you don't understand the rules, and that's exactly how you end up losing. So take some time to listen to a podcast or maybe read a book about financial literacy and really understand the tools that are available to you and what you want to be using and what you want to be doing for your financial life. The next one is negotiate. Really, in life, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate, and that is so true. At my previous job, I knew everyone's salary and I knew everyone's starting point. I can tell you that so many people who had the exact same job, who did the exact same responsibilities, were paid so vastly differently. And let me tell you that it's not always the person who is better who is getting more. It's actually 100% always the person who asks for more who gets more. And sometimes the person who makes less is actually a much better worker. And it's very sad to see. So it's so important to know your worth and learn how to negotiate. Not just your salary, but everything in life. When you buy a car, when you buy a house, there's negotiations that happen. And if you are not practiced at negotiating, if you are afraid of it, if it makes you uncomfortable, which honestly, I think it makes everybody uncomfortable, but the practice will help you get over that, and it'll help you be able to negotiate just better things for you in all aspects of your life. So really work on that. Work on asking for a raise, even if the answer is no. Typically what's going to happen is your manager's then going to know that you want a raise, and that signals to them that next time there's an opportunity for maybe a promotion or a raise, maybe they need someone to take on more responsibilities, the first person they're going to think about is you, because you've asked for it. Okay, that's it for today's video. I hope that you found value in this. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!